Hey, bestie.
Hey, bestie.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
A little hot, but we're good.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. When we first got on here, I had on a sweater too because the air kicked on at my house, which is right above me. So it's frigid always in my office. And you're in a tank.
Yeah, my air is being replaced, so I wish I had air at all. But like above me would be even better because I'm dying.
Yeah, I have a frigid chill right above me. Oh, Fritzy's joining us.
Hey, girl. Well, hi, sister.
That's odd because I think Casey's sitting downstairs. So weird.
She came to say hello. She misses me.
Yeah, she has this new thing where she really likes to get under the covers. And for the first time ever, a couple weeks ago, she did it up here in the office. There's like her bed, dog bed is on top of a like futon bed or whatever. And we keep it in bed form so they can look out, lay in their bed and look out the window. And the other day I hear this rustling behind me and she has knocked off all of the pillows so that she could get to under the covers. So well, she's laying in her bed this time. So oh well.
We have our astrology bestie with us today. Hey, Marci.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
This is always my favorite time. And it's apparently it's Casey's too, because he was telling his friend that he should listen to the episodes that you're involved with.
Oh, I love it. Casey's like my biggest endorser. I love it.
I know he's still kind of, he thinks it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But
It is. He's not wrong.
Cool. I love it. I love any endorser. That's great. That is
So
great.
his biggest question though is this thing of free will.
Mm.
What is it and what does it mean and how does it affect astrology? Because
Yeah, it's a great question because it's a really important component of astrology. And actually, I try to talk about this. Sometimes I forget, but I really try to emphasize and talk about this in every reading I do because as an astrologer, I never want to lean into a position that the planets are making you do things or the universe is making you react in a way, because that really takes away your personal power. And that's really not the purpose of astrology. It's really here to inform you and empower you, not take away your power. So when we say we have free will, what that's referring to is, the energy is there and it is what it is, but you are ultimately in charge of what actions you do or don't do on any given moment. So, for example, one easy example I can give is, let's talk about Mercury retrograde. So we know Mercury retrograde, it happens like 3 times a year. It's the planet that goes retrograde the most often. It's it's kind of gained a lot of popularity in pop culture because you start to see like Gatorade in the microwave memes going around and, all of that. So Mercury retrograde is typically a time where communication gets jumbled, travel plans don't always work out. There are sometimes issues with technology, glitches, etc. So if a Mercury retrograde is happening, and let's say it's happening in a pretty significant part of your chart, you're going to feel this kind of miscombobulation, misfires, if you will. Things are just not as smooth as you'd like them to be. And you have 2 ways you can react to this. Let's just narrow it down to 2. You can just sit there and get extremely frustrated and angry, and maybe you end up taking all that frustration out on someone next to you. Or you can say, oh, this is really frustrating. And you take a deep breath and you move on with your day. That's where the empowerment comes in. That's where your free will comes in. Because despite what's happening, you always have the power to manage your reactions and manage your emotions to whatever might be happening. So that's why I talk a lot about free will. So again, it's not about the planets are making you do things or you're going to be faced with a situation that, the universe is not treating you well this year or next year. It's really about being presented with challenges or opportunities, and it's up to you to manage through those challenges or opportunities.
So when you talk about the like free will versus I don't want to say predictions because it's not like you're, looking at a crystal ball or something.
Mhm.
Is it more like directionally, like this is the energy that's surrounding you then?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So a great example is, I've been working with a client here recently where, I mean, I could tell from her chart, she's probably going to have quite a bit of job opportunities coming up her way. Now, so that's kind of the energies I see. And so from a prediction perspective, I'm predicting that there's going to be more activity related to her job status, getting an offer, maybe quitting a job. It kind of depends on what her chart is indicating more specifically. But what she actually chooses to do with that is completely up to her. So, for example, let's say she got emailed a job offer, but she doesn't want to check her email. She's like, I don't want to check my email for the next 2 weeks. You might miss it. Let's say she got an offer, but she doesn't really like it and she actually doesn't want to move on in another role. She doesn't have to. Like, so it's kind of predicting where is the focus going to be for any given of any given time of year. What's the energy kind of saying in terms of what area of your life might be highlighted for a specific time? But again, it's really up to you to use those energies as you see fit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sorry, I just heard stuff behind me.
But yeah, that's kind of what I refer to a lot as free will because again, at least the astrology that I practice, the whole purpose is to be empowered by it, to be informed by it, and to use it to your advantage. I can give another example. Speaking of Mercury retrograde, Abby, you were actually there when we were having Mercury retrograde in New Jersey back at the end of
Yes.
February, I guess it was. I had to pick up two things and take it over to the studio. I had to pick up, what was it? Bagels at one store and coffee to go from another store. And you know how the apps work and everything. And I go to the bagel store, I pick up the bagels, everything's fine. I go to the coffee store, it's the wrong coffee store. I went to the wrong one. And they're like, oh no, your order's not here. You have to go to the other one. So then I have to backtrack and I have to go 20 minutes. And then I finally get all my stuff. And what should have taken me, I don't know, 17 minutes ended up taking me 25 minutes. And I'm annoyed. And then I get to the studio where I'm going to drop it all off. And the guys there are like, why didn't you just all pick this up at one place? Why did you go to two different places? Like the level of frustration, like that is a
Yeah.
perfect example of a Mercury retrograde frustration. Like I ended up going here, 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 and then all the way back here. And the guy was right. I should have just picked it all up at the first place, but for whatever reason, I didn't think of it. So in that moment, and this is not easy to do, but in that moment, I can sit there and just be extremely frustrated, or I can just take a deep breath and be like, you know what? I knew that's what I'm playing with today. It just is what it is, and I'm just going to let this go. So that's kind of like it empowers you to do what you will with the astrology that's in front of you. But it also empowers you to kind of plan your day, your week, your month into what it is. I mean, there are some months that it's just not going to be a good time to be social. You're really not going to feel like it. So you can certainly go out and be social. You can absolutely do that if you choose. You may not enjoy it as much, but you can still do it. That's up to you. So that's where your free will comes in.
Does that kind of play into like the religious aspect too? Because I know one of our listeners was asking about how this could fit in with religion because she believes in God and sees this as kind of witchcraft.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's an excellent question. And I actually get this quite a bit, especially when I do workshops or other type of group events, because it does kind of bring the question in like, you're talking about the universe, but I believe in God, let's say, in this particular instance. And I think it depends a lot on culture because, for example, in Latin America, the idea of astrology and religion, they sit side by side. There's not kind of this hard delineation of an either or, for example. It's actually pretty well integrated in a lot of the countries in Latin America. But in North America, that's not necessarily true. A lot of people see a very definitive line between religion and spirituality, and more specifically, astrology. But in my mind, and I grew up with a Christian faith, in my mind, it's not a replacement. It is something that sits right next to the other, because the sole purpose of astrology is connecting us to something bigger and aligning and it essentially indicating that as above, so below, that we are part of something bigger. And what's happening in the universe is being reflected within us, or what's happening within us is being reflected in the universe. So it's kind of a symbiotic type of relationship. And in many ways, that's how a lot of religions are functioning as well. So we're all part of something bigger. That's kind of the ultimate fundamental message that a lot of religions lead with, is that we're not here to exist on our own. We are here to build community. And there is something bigger that kind of unites us in that purpose. So that could be a God for some people, it could be the universe. So to me, they really sit right next to each other, and they kind of approach life in maybe a little bit of a different strategy. But to me, it's ultimately saying that the universe or God, they they just want the best for us, and they want to see us grow, and they want to see us evolve. And for me, those can be the same. They can be one and the same. They can be right next to each other. They can sit side by side. So I don't really feel that they're all that different. The strategy is different and the approach that they both take is different, but I feel like there's a lot of overlap. And in fact, a lot of current day holidays are scheduled around astrology. So, for example, the Chinese New Year, that happens on the Aquarius new moon every year. Easter, the Christian Easter holiday, happens on the first Sunday after the Libra full moon. So, there's actually, if you go throughout history, there's actually a lot of integration and alignment with some of the more religious traditional holidays with the astrology of that time. So, I think if we dug a little deeper, we would find that they're actually more connected than not, the further back we go.
It's always interesting intellectually to me. It's one of those
Yeah,
things I find fascinating,
absolutely.
So we had another listener email us, and I want to say it was after like the first or second episode that we did with you. They were asking more about the planetary returns. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Yeah. You said it correctly.
Planetary is one of those like weird words that when you say it, it doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
But yeah, they want to know more about the planetary returns.
Yeah. Because I think that was when we were talking about Saturn. You're right. That was the first
Yes.
episode. We were talking about your Saturn, the fact that you're in your Saturn return. Yeah.
Yes. And then after that, I think I had my Pluto return, right?
No, you have not had your
No.
Pluto return. I
What
promise
did
you
I
that.
have?
We talked about your lunar return.
Lunar. Okay. I knew there
Yeah.
was two.
Yes. Yes, we did. We
Something
Okay.
talked about
tells me
it.
Pluto may be a doozy.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, what's the Pluto return? Can we start with that? Because I'm intrigued.
So actually, I promise you have not had a Pluto return, and you will never have a Pluto return because Pluto's orbit is like 248 years.
Okay.
So nobody has a Pluto return. Nobody has a Neptune return either.
If you did have them, what are those ones? Because like
Well,
someone's got to, right? Or no?
oh,
No,
248
because
years?
No one that we know alive, right?
Yeah, no. People don't live that long. It takes
okay, so
248 years for it to go around.
so it will never like cross anyone's chart, I guess.
It will
I'm
not.
not thinking it. I'm thinking not like in someone's lifetime they're gonna live 250 years. I'm just thinking it could cross someone's chart, but that's not how it works.
Right. Right.
Okay, got
Well,
it.
you actually bring up a really deep topic that you actually
Thank
kind
you.
of touch on. So I'll back up and say, what do we mean by planetary return? So in your birth chart, in your natal birth chart, um, those that chart is indicating where each of the planets were the moment you took your first breath. And
Got
it's
it.
static. It never changes. It is what it is. It's at the exact degree, the minute, and all the planets interact, etc. It never changes. When a planet, but conversely, as the days go on, the months go on, the planets continue to move throughout the universe. So when the planets get back to the point that they were when you were born, that's called a planetary return. So
Makes
all the
sense.
planets do that. So all 10 planets do it. However, in the case of Neptune and Pluto, you're not going to be alive when those happen because their orbits, they move so slowly, and subsequently their orbits to get back to their place are, 248 years, 132 years. I can't remember what Neptune's entire orbit is off the top of my head, but a long time. We're not going to be alive to see that. That being said, I think this is kind of to your point, which is kind of fascinating. It is also true that sometimes after people pass, that you tend to hear about them when they have significant things happen in their chart. So their chart continues to stay as it was. And as different points hit that chart, it's possible that something will be brought up regarding those people again. And I can give you a fascinating fact. So, did you know on Netflix? I think it was Netflix. Maybe it was Hulu. I think it was Hulu. They had the special of John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Love Story, and it was this whole thing. So, what's interesting about that is, and I might be getting the facts incorrect, but the concept is correct. John F. Kennedy Jr. was a Virgo rising, and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy was an Aquarius rising. And earlier this year, we had a Virgo eclipse and we had an Aquarius eclipse. So those are two incredibly potent or important parts of their chart. And all of a sudden, there's this resurgence of their life. Like this special was made and it was released, and people were talking about them again for the first time in decades.
That's crazy.
They
Yeah.
have died, and then all of a sudden they're brought back. And I did see a couple of astrologers indicating, well, it actually makes sense that this is being brought back to the public attention because both of their charts are being impacted in a big way with this shift in the eclipses. So yeah, your chart can live in air quotes beyond your life, or your name could be brought up, or something connected to you, that is a possibility. But in general, a planetary return just represents when a planet comes back to the original point it was on your specific birth chart. And it usually represents it's like a homecoming, if you will, of that particular planet. So you often feel like a surge of energy related to those planet themes. So as I mentioned, if we start on the fastest side of what moves the fastest in the solar system, we'll start with the moon. So every month you have a lunar return, which because the moon moves as fast as it does, you have kind of a reset of the energy every month. Now, because it happens every month, you probably don't notice it very dramatically, but it does happen that every month your moon goes back to the same spot it was when you're born, and it's like a big refresh for that current month. Your energy is kind of refreshed. It kind of gives a different direction, if you will, about what's coming or what's ahead for you in that particular month. Then you have the sun. The sun, and having the sun return back to the exact spot, that's also known as your birthday. So obviously you celebrate your birthday on the same day every year, but from an astrological perspective, we would celebrate your birthday on the exact day where the sun was when you took your first breath. So for example, just given the dynamics of how things move in the universe, that could be like the day before your birthday, it could be the day of your birthday, it could be the day after your birthday. Again, just kind of given those dynamics. But that one's really important. And I actually have an entire reading called Your Solar Return. Again, the moment the sun returns to its spot, it's like your personal new year, quite honestly. A lot of people celebrate, obviously, the Gregorian calendar New Year in January, but your solar return, in my opinion, is even more important. That's a huge reset. And it's very common that in some people's lives, they have bigger events happen around their birthday or even at the midpoint. So your half birthday, that's very common. But it's also common to have a shift in energy as well. And in fact, the last two solar return readings I've had, the first question I've asked them, I'm like, it's interesting. Every time I have a solar return client, I ask them first, what is it that they're feeling? Because that's often what the chart indicates. And every time, like one of my clients, she's like, this is so odd, but I am such an introvert, but for whatever reason, I have been feeling so social. I want to go out. I want to meet people. I want to see friends. And I'm like, yes, lean into that, do that. Because that just happened to be kind of what her chart was indicating for that year ahead. So that's a really important one. I pay a lot of attention to the solar return. And then you also have a return for Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Yes, those happen. They're not necessarily as significant. Those you may or may not notice. And then the next two ones that I would say are more significant are your Jupiter return and then your Saturn return. So your Jupiter return is really awesome. It only happens once every 12 years. And Abby, you and I are both getting ready to experience our Jupiter return,
Once
which,
every 12 years?
yeah. So think back like 12 years ago, which was what, 2014? You may remember that time period, just things maybe felt a tad bit easier, or you had more opportunities coming your way. There might have been more travel involved or opportunities for you to kind of expand your learning. Just a more of kind of an optimistic feeling to life at that point. That might have actually even been more into 2015 for you versus 2014. Regardless, your Jupiter return, again, Jupiter's that planet of abundance and maybe even a little bit of excess, but opportunity, good fortune, benevolence, but also like education and being open to new opportunities, new perspectives in life, even and travel. So you kind of get that rush of whatever that planet is known for at the time of its return.
So let me ask you this. So Steph just had her Saturn return, but
Hmm.
Saturn was in near my ascendant.
Yeah,
Is that
Pisces.
right?
Yeah.
Is that the same or how is that different?
Yeah. So the Saturn return, those two can be felt very similar, essentially, I think is what you're asking. So the Saturn return is, really a time, a 2.5 year period where many of us are met with additional responsibility. We're asked to take on more responsibility or implement more structure in our lives in some way, shape, or form, or just kind of grow up, quite honestly. But when Saturn for you when Saturn was on your ascendant, that's also referred to having Saturn in your first house. And that can bring very similar type of energies or obstacles to you where you're kind of asked to do the same thing, that you're asked to kind of go through this obstacle course, if you will, but they're not always easy.
So it was in a significant portion of my chart, but
Yes,
not necessarily where it was when I first was born.
exactly. That is
Okay.
correct. So it wasn't your Saturn return, but it was in a very important part of your chart that can certainly have similar type of energies that you're dealing with as a Saturn return.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get that now.
Yeah, that's a good point. But speaking of the Saturn return, that's the other one I pay a lot of attention to when people are in their Saturn return. As we talked about in the first episode, that can be a challenging time of your life. And the good news is it only happens once every 29 and a half years. So it's not very frequent. You only go through it twice, 3 times if you're lucky. So that is something I definitely pay attention to because that's usually an indicator that you will be going through some challenges for sure. So that's what we mean by planetary returns.
Okay, so we have those, and then when planets are in like your 5th house, your 12th house, whatever, all these things, that's like just where they land for that season or that
Hmm.
time, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I should probably back up and talk a little bit about what do I mean by houses. I'm sure that's confusing. So when you look at your birth chart and you think about the signs, all of the zodiac signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, etc., they kind of form a circle when you look at where the planets are in your birth chart. And astrologers along the way had to figure out, okay, how are we going to divide up the sky? Because it's massive. And so they created kind of these categories, if you will. They're called houses, but they're just categories. And when you look at it on a sheet or on a printed form, it's like pieces of a pie or pieces of pizza, if you will. And each one represents a different area of your life. So oftentimes, when we talk about the first house, that's really the area of your chart that really speaks to how you present yourself and how you approach life. So that's your rising sign, essentially. That's the first house. There are a total of 12 houses. And again, they kind of speak to where things happen in your life. So 1 through 12, if you're having like a lot of activity, you mentioned stuff happening in your fifth house, A fifth house is a great transit. A fifth house is like where you have fun, where you find joy. If you're in the dating scene, that's where you might meet up with a romantic partner, for example. Um, so it's kind of a fun area of the chart, if you will. It's also about creativity. If you have children, it's often there's an indicator that you are going to be with children or doing something that kind of connects you back to your childhood or your hobbies in some way. Um, so that's kind of where it means. It just kind of gives an indication of where in your life something might be showing up. So the planets are kind of talking about what's happening, and the house is talking about where something is occurring.
It's all so fascinating to me.
I know. I feel like every time Marci explains something, we're just like, we got to take it in. Give us a moment.
I know.
So
I
far,
know.
though, we haven't had the
Right?
I don't know. Steph did with her Saturn return. She's like, oh my God, what does this mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So how can you use, if you look at your chart and you see thing like which house, which planet is in? I'm not asking this good, so you
Yeah,
can
no, you
like
are.
fix the
You're
ask,
okay.
but how can you use that in your life, like to guide you in different directions, or like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
it's a great question. So if we go back to kind of the example I mentioned, we were talking about free will, about how there's definitely some months where you're not going to feel like being social. You're going to kind of feel like being home and kind of just nurturing yourself and taking care of yourself. So that's, in my opinion, that's like a 12th house season. That's the 12th house. That's the house that comes right before the first house in the circle. Um, I know, Abby, I've told you this before too, that, sometimes you're just feeling exhausted. Like you just have an extra sense of tiredness to going about your daily routine. So when I think about how do I use this information, I use this information all the time. So if it's a 12th house season for me, I know like I am going to dial down my activities because I just know that I'm just not going to have the energy for it. And I also know that I need to put myself to bed early that night, every night of that month, because I'm just not going to be in it. On the other hand, if I have a friend call me up and say, hey, let's take a trip, when should we do it? Okay, then I'm going to look at the ninth house, or I'm going to look at my fifth house season to say when is a good time for me to travel, because those tend to be just more open to traveling activities, etc. Now, again, you have free will. You can schedule trips whenever you want. I just like to do it in alignment with my astrology because I know it's just kind of set up better in that way as much as I can. Obviously real life happens too. So um, that's an
when
example.
when you say your 12th house season, the houses stay the same. It's the planets that move through them. So are
Right.
you looking for certain planets in certain seasons, houses?
Yeah, exactly. The
Okay.
sun. I'm looking at the sun. So like when the
Okay.
sun gets into Aries, and the sun is in Aries right now as we speak, that's lighting up for you, Abby. That's kind of your first house as well. Yours is a little bit more complicated, but we're going to say that's your first house. But Steph, for you, that's your fourth house. So when I say the season, an Aries season, so the fourth house for you is there's going to be probably more activity related to your home as you're sitting there waiting for your air conditioning to be fixed,
Okay, fair.
but also family related stuff. There could be a lot more family related topics that have come up during this Aries season when the sun is in Aries. Um, Abby, for you, there's probably more coming up about kind of just your own personal expression, like how you express yourself, getting yourself out there in a bigger way, thinking about how you show up in the world, even. Sometimes this type of season, usually there's like a kind of a burst of energy, like a positive energy when it's your first house season. Like you feel like, okay, I have my energy back, because the season right before it is when you're feeling exhausted. And this first house season is, I love it. Like it feels great to be in a first house season because you just have kind of more of your vitality back, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
So
When is my first house season?
Capricorn. So
Oh, so
Capricorn
I've
seasons,
already had that.
you already had it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
But
shoot.
coming up next, you have Taurus season, and that's your fifth house season. I love fifth house seasons. Love it. Love it. So
Taurus
fifth
is the
house,
next season
yeah,
we're switching to?
yeah,
Okay.
on
And
Sunday.
you said the 5th house is the fun one, right?
Hmm? I love a fifth
Let's
house.
go.
Yeah. Yeah, so fifth house is all about getting together with friends, doing things that are fun, just enjoying life and really doing hobbies, recreational. Whatever you do for recreation, that is a fifth house month. Like if you were wanting
Just
to
in
get
time for golf season, Abby.
I
yeah,
know.
if you're wanting to get together with friends, this is absolutely the time to do it during your fifth house.
Okay.
Aren't you coming that weekend after?
Yeah. No, I'm not coming this weekend. I'm coming next weekend. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
perfect. Love that.
Yeah.
I feel like the way you're explaining too, how you kind of use these things as a guide, it made me think of, how people, well, I guess girls will use like their cycle as a
Mhm.
guide too, with like, I know in this phase I'm going to be really tired. This phase I've got more energy. It makes me think kind of that too.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a lot of parallels, especially when you think about the cycle of the moon.
Mhm.
The moon's also 28 days as it, goes back to the original spot.
Yeah.
So some people, yeah, can relate to that a lot. So it's very similar approach for sure. So speaking of Aries season, because we were just talking about how that's probably impacting Abby, you and Steph in terms of your fourth house and first house. We have actually a really cool lineup happening this week in astrology. This is where all the astrologers get really geeky and really excited. We have 7 planets. So remember, we only have 10, and 7 of the 10 are in the sign of Aries this week, are all going into the sign.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a lot. The last time, this is where things get geeky. The last time we had 7 planets in the sign of Aries all at once, take a guess. Take a guess.
I mean, it's got to be outrageous.
Yeah. 250 years ago.
Mm, I can't do that math, but
Oh my gosh.
not that long. I don't think it's been that long.
Okay. Oh, you meant a year.
A year, yeah. Yeah.
1925.
Okay. Steph, do you have a guess?
Oh god. 1913.
1821 was the last time
Whoa.
we had this many planets in Aries. So fun fact, astrologers are geeking out about it. But for everyday people like us, what does this mean? So there's obviously when you have 7 out of 10 planets in one sign, that means there's a huge concentration in that sign. Or in other words, kind of a huge burst of energy related to Aries, because that's the zodiac sign that this is all happening in. So Aries is really known for being bold, being courageous, kind of leaping before you look and really taking initiative, maybe not quite thinking it through, but taking that initiative anyway and really thinking about yourself in terms of what do you want and going after what you want. So having all these planets is kind of just putting a bigger emphasis um, on Aries energy and this particular area of your chart. So, Steph, for the example of your home life, so this is really lighting up your home life, your family. So it makes perfect sense that you're dealing with an air conditioning issue in your physical home because that's exactly what's being brought up. And then, Abby, for you, I mean, you tell me, but it could be like this surge of energy, like you finally feel like you get that vitality back, like I was mentioning, which could be true for Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, all 3 of those signs. That could be like a feeling that they're having, just wanting to express themselves, not wanting to hold back anymore, wanting to maybe even travel, like you're having these urges to travel or just get out and meet people again. That could be part of what you're experiencing this month as well. But Steph, for more like Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus people that have significant placements, it could be more about your home, your family, or kind of your deeper feelings. I know one of my clients and is Taurus, and she is absolutely exhausted because this is happening. All of this activity is happening in the 12th part of her chart. So as we were just talking, the 12th can really bring up exhaustion. There's a lot of activity, but she's worn out, to say the least. But for like Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, they are probably having a lot of activity happening with their work, their careers. That might actually a lot happening for that group in those areas. So again, kind of just that really heavy focus. And Mars just recently entered Aries, and Mars is at home in Aries, which means it has access to full power, full strength. And Mars is all those things I described. It's really where we all get our ambition, where we kind of really show up in the world in terms of getting out and having good energy. And so when Mars is there, we tend to have a lot of good energy. But we also have Saturn in Aries at the same time. So sometimes that can
She's
feel a little
a little
restrictive.
bitch.
I'm a little scared.
So the end of this week, I mean, we have all that really like fiery. Aries is a fire sign. So we have all this like really fiery energy, like, yeah, let's go. And um, but it's also meeting up with Saturn. So later this week, you might be met with some frustrations. There could be some roadblocks that you're going to be faced with, especially in terms of work. Like maybe there was a project that you were trying to get launched, and then all of a sudden you got all of these people coming back and saying, oh, actually, you need to get 4 more sets of approvals, for example. Or there's been a delay in terms of when you can launch something. Or maybe there's even some friction with a coworker, because Mars also represents kind of combat, if you will, or friction. Mars likes to do things Mars's way and no one else. So that's kind of the energy we have right now. But it's kind of an exciting time to be, because we are definitely more moving as a collective to more of this like fire and air type of energy versus coming from the the water and earth energy, if you will, the elements of astrology. So it's if you think about your life today versus even a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, it might feel very different when you try to think about the energies you felt then versus now.
So last time you were here, you told us April 17th, which is this Friday, we need to vision board.
Yes.
Is that has to do with all of this, I assume?
So
Or
that
why?
April 17th, I'm so impressed that you remembered that date. I love that.
I put it on my calendar.
I
And
love
we've been
that.
talking about it. Yeah.
I love it.
I have supplies. I've been working on it, getting ready.
I love that. I need to get on the ball for I have until Friday. So um but yes, so the reason why I mentioned April 17th is because it's a new moon. So all of that planetary activity and happening, having 7 planets in Aries, that doesn't really impact the 17th. It's a new moon in Aries. This happens once a year, every year. So it's not necessarily connected to that. But as you can imagine, with a new moon is all about setting intentions and really planting seeds and having all this fiery energy behind it. That's like putting your intentions and wishes on steroids, because you have like all this fire to kind of push that out into the universe and make it happen. So I love it. I mean, it's exciting.
So if there's any new moon, even if they don't want a vision board, this is a new moon to set down and write some intentions out.
I would absolutely. Yes. Yes. The Aries new moon, for the most part, unless we're in eclipse season, which we're not going to be for another 9 years in Aries, I would absolutely always do some sort of manifesting on the Aries new moon. It's special in that way because it marks the start of the astrological new year. So it's just a little bit more of a potent new moon than other new
Can
moons when it
you
comes to starting that. Yeah.
can you talk about the best time to manifest too? Cuz isn't it like right when the sun comes up or the moon I don't know, something about that, right?
Yeah. So it's the new moon. And I recommend manifesting on the new moon, but after the new moon goes exact. And it's pretty easy to find. I mean, most of the time, you can just go, you can Google it. I mean, quite honestly, you can Google when is the new moon of this month and write it down in your calendar. And that is the by far the best time to write down your goals, wishes, and intentions. I think I mentioned this on a previous episode. I cannot tell you how many times things come true by doing this. I've heard not just me. I can certainly speak to my own personal experience, but I have clients come to me that said, "Oh my God, like you won't believe what happened." Um, so that's really important to do it during a new moon. You can look it up on Google. Again, it's pretty easy. Printed calendars, if you still have any type of like wall calendar, a lot of times they will still indicate new moons and full moons. Or you can follow your favorite astrologer on the Instagram or the TikTok, and I always talk about
Ticky tock.
new moons. I always talk about new moons. It's my favorite time of the month.
So specific time of that day with the new moon. So that's this Friday, right?
Yeah, there's not necessarily a specific time. I mean, if we want to get really detailed, I mean, I do just because I have access to it. I always get very specific, so I always do it right after the new moon because that's when it's most potent.
Okay.
So you can look up the time. Again, you can do a quick Google search and it will tell you exactly what time that new moon is going exact.
Hmm.
And you should always do it after that. So, for example, if we're having a new moon on Friday, don't do your intentions on Thursday. Like, I would not recommend if you're like, oh, shoot, I have a really busy day on Friday. I know I'm not going to get to it. I would rather you wait till Saturday and do your intentions. I would not do it the day before.
Good to know.
Yeah. But again, I do that because I have access to the information, but you don't have to align it. You don't have to be that strict. I just think manifesting and putting your goals and wishes on paper is so powerful in itself. I highly recommend it. But of course, if you want to use the astrology, you certainly can do that too.
Is there anything you recommend to do after you write your intentions and manifestations? Because like on social media and stuff, sometimes you see like put it under your pillowcase or hang it where you can see all these different things. Is there anything you'd recommend, or is it all just as long as you write it?
Yeah. As long as you write it. And again, and it needs to be written. Like you can't text it to yourself. That doesn't count. It needs to be the old fashioned pen onto paper, pencil onto paper. The only thing I do is for every full moon, so we're going to have a full moon, let's see, on May 1st, we're going to have a full moon in Scorpio. So I will go back to my new moon manifestation on the new moon in Scorpio and I will look what I wrote down. And oftentimes, because the new moon in Scorpio is exactly 6 months before or after the Scorpio full moon. So oftentimes by the full moon, you will see a lot of what you've written down manifested, or there's movement to it, or there's progress to it, or it was developed in a way that maybe it no longer applies for some reason. But it's actually pretty wild how that timing tends to work out. So to more directly answer your question, I don't do anything with them. Have a little book. Actually, it's right here. I can show you. This is my little book, my little new moon book, if you can see it. I just keep it in the book. And then 6 months later, I look at it for that sign. I mean, I look at it for every full moon that comes up. So I'm actually looking at it every 6 months or every 30 days. But that's it. If it feels better to put it under your pillow next to a window, you certainly can. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't do that in particular, though.
All right. So you talked about this week, but we have the sun sign is changing this weekend, right?
Yes. Yes. So Taurus season starts on Sunday, the 19th. I love this coming Taurus season. So I was just talking about Aries season. Aries is full of fire and energy and courage and boldness. And especially this week, things might get a little tense with all the meetup of all those planets and all the energy coming within Aries. But Taurus season in general, Taurus season is much more of a grounded energy. So Taurus is what we call an earth sign, and it's definitely meant to ask us to slow down and to really take in life's pleasures and to not be rushing around. Like slow and steady wins the race when it comes to Taurus season. And this Taurus season in particular has a lot of great signatures to it, what we call signatures, like what's happening during this Taurus season. So I really feel like it's going to be a nice complement to some of the intense energies that many of us might be feeling this week. So Sunday's going to come and it's not going to be right away. It's not like we're going to wake up Sunday morning or Monday morning and feel different. But as the further we get into Taurus season, we're going to start to feel like, okay, I found my footing again. I'm able to relax. Things don't feel as fiery anymore. So it's a great season to also relax and take it easy.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I do feel, and I think we talked about this the last time you were on, like I do feel like I come more alive in the springtime.
Yeah.
And it's like wintertime for me, I'm very inside, internal, go in my head a lot. And it's almost like the springtime Aries, I guess,
Yeah.
when I start to
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. And it's funny. For like growing up, I never liked the month of March. Like I dreaded it every year. And I didn't understand why. Like, why would I, like, nothing happens. Like, it's not like an
Yeah.
anniversary or anything. And I just always dreaded it. And then once I learned astrology, I'm like, oh, that's why. It's an eighth house month for me, which can be like more emotional and heavy and has you more into your feelings, which is it's fine, but that's not necessarily fun, you know?
Yeah.
So, but that kind of explained to me as well. And so similar to you, Abby, like once we get into Taurus season, I feel like, okay, I feel more like myself once we get into Aries and Taurus season and Gemini. All three of those are some of my favorite times of the year.
So the houses, do they follow the months or do they follow the sun signs?
They follow the sun,
Okay.
the sun signs. So yeah, I mentioned, March, April. So, every zodiac sign has like it has a majority that it falls in. It typically starts around the 20th of the month and then it goes to the 20th of the next month. So I kind of associate March with Pisces since it starts in late February and goes into like the middle to late March. But, so that's really what I'm referring to.
Gotcha. Well, this one wasn't so scary, I don't feel like.
No, no. And actually, I think I should talk about what I love about each of the signs to keep it light and we're not talking about Pluto and Saturn and Pluto returning on your ascendant and all that nonsense.
Before you tell us what you love about each sign, so you offer readings, obviously, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
One of the readings that you offer, tell me the correct name, but it's the like every month one.
It's like your monthly guide. I don't
Monthly guide. Okay.
This is terrible. I
Sure.
don't remember what I call it on my website. But it's
That's
like
okay.
monthly
Just look for the
check-in.
monthly one.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called like the monthly
So
check-in.
do you do those by the calendar month, by the seasons, the sign seasons, sun seasons, whatever? Or does it really matter?
It's a little bit of both. Just to be clear, I call it the monthly forecast. That's my
Monthly
official name
forecast.
on the
Okay.
site. But it's a combination of whatever it is. So, for example, if you were to reach out, let's say on May 1st,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna cover May from a Taurus perspective, but also a Gemini perspective because May covers both seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily a hard line like May 1st to May 30th. It's more about
Right.
kind of what's being presented during that approximate timeline. Sometimes I'll talk about it in terms of 6 weeks just because there might be a lot going on in that 6 week time period. So it just makes sense to kind of share that whole story because it's unfolding over a 6 week time period. But yeah, so it's not a definitive 30 days necessarily. It's kind of just what astrological season, how is that impacting you? And then depending on what's going on, that could also speak to more than just those 4 weeks.
So if
You know,
someone wants to schedule it like mid-month, that's still okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, whatever works for my clients in terms of
Mm-hmm.
when they want that kind of additional guidance or understanding. But you can also select the monthly forecast if maybe you don't want to do a full 50 minutes, an hour-long session. You just kind of want to check in. That's a great option because, it's less time, so it's less of a time commitment, but it's also a lower price point. So we can still cover a lot of ground in 30 minutes. So that's the other thing too, is I'm very flexible in terms of, what we cover. I mean, I absolutely, for every client, I want to make sure they get the value and they get whatever questions they have they have. I want to make sure I can provide guidance. So I'm very flexible in terms of what does that mean for each individual person. Great
I do
question,
10
though.
out of 10 recommend the monthly forecast, so the full thing, because it's nice to have that as a guide as to what you could expect. And then I did the one with you in February. I missed March. Um, but you told me a couple things, and sure as shit, they all happened. And one of them was kind of like a wah wah.
Yeah.
But when it happened, I kind of laughed about it because it was like you told me about it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't super upset or angry or frustrated or anything. So it kind of lightened it. So
Yeah.
recommend.
I mean, well, thank you for that recommendation. I
Thank you.
greatly
Yeah.
appreciate it. But that's exactly how I feel about the astrology and how it's empowering. Like, it really helps me reframe. I mean,
Hmm.
like, don't get me wrong, stuff is still hard. There's still
Yeah.
hard shit that we're all dealing with. But it's like, okay, it makes sense that I'm dealing with this when I am. I don't know.
Right.
To me, there's a lot of comfort in that. And I think I mentioned this story. Like last year, my work, my day job was not fun. It was so stressful. I was miserable. And one night I was like, I'm just going to look at my charts and figure out when is this going to end? And I sat there and I just kept clicking and clicking until like, when does this get better? And it did. It did get better. And it was like, so it kind of lightened my mood. Like, okay, it's not fun right now, but I know this isn't forever. And that's to me, that's incredibly empowering. But it can also be empowering to hear what is the message that the universe is trying to send you in this moment. I mean, I could talk about this for hours. I have so many examples of understanding what is that core message that's being asked of you in the moment. Like your Saturn return, like we were talking,
Hmm.
like if you go into your Saturn return or a period of time where Saturn's at a pretty pivotal part of your chart, sometimes it can be helpful to say, yes, this is hard and this is going to be a challenge. So take care of yourself in the best way you know how. Like I tell my kids this when I know I can see they're going to be up against some tough stuff. I'm like, hey, you got some tough stuff coming up. Take care of yourself. Get to bed on time. Don't eat junk food. Like those things aren't going to help you during this time. Have an outlet for what you're feeling in some way, whether that's sports or talking to somebody, whatever that might be. I don't know. I find that very empowering for that reason.
It's a good tool to have for sure.
Yeah.
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 Okay, let's hear what you love.
Okay. I'll get on this theme of keeping it light and fun for this episode. So, Aries, I talked a little bit about this already. The boldness. Like you talk about a sign that does not care what anybody thinks or wants. That's Aries. But I love an Aries because they show up unapologetically. They're like, hey, people, this is who I am. And this is what I want. And this is what I need. And I'm not going to apologize for it. I don't know. I find that like, I love that. I love that about an Aries. I strive to be an Aries in that way.
Because you always
Taurus,
know where you stand.
yes, you always know where you stand. They're not, you know, so I don't know. That's what I love about Aries. Taurus is, as I mentioned, kind of that grounding energy. I have a really good friend that's a Taurus. They are amazing friends because number one, they remind you to have fun. They remind you to relax and not take life so serious, but they're also incredibly grounding people. There can certainly be a time in your life where everything feels upside down. And that Taurus friend is going to be standing next to you to say, no, I am here and so are you. And everything's okay. Like they have such a grounding presence. It's really incredible when you think about it. Gemini. I love Geminis. Geminis are like the busy bee of the zodiac. They're very curious. They love talking to everybody and learning information as quickly as they possibly can, maybe even sharing information. The shadow side of that is gossip, but the strength of it is they tend to be very witty. So, they're always making people laugh, but also they can make a conversation with anyone. So if you take them to a party, they will talk to everybody at that party. And they usually can do that pretty easily. So I find them a joy to talk to because they're so interesting. Cancer. So the sign of Cancer is very much a nurturing sign of the zodiac. They are kind of the mothers of the group. They are very caring, very intuitive, very connected to the family or the home in some way. However, you don't always know that going into when you first meet a Cancer because they tend to have a tough outer shell. So sometimes it can be harder to get to know them or to really understand what they need because they're sometimes so occupied with supporting those they love or being there for the ones that they love versus themselves. And then Leo. Oh my gosh, you know I love a Leo. Uh,
That's me.
and that's my rising sign. So I have a lot of connections with the Leos. Love a Leo. A Leo will show you a good time. Leos love to have fun. They love to enjoy life and they love to shine a light within themselves, but within others too. And that's one of the great things about a Leo. Virgo. Virgo is another earth sign, so can be very grounding and kind of bring you back down to earth when things feel like you're spiraling. What I love about Virgos, and in my line of work, in my career, it involves quite a bit of planning. Virgos are excellent at planning because they always have the details here and then here and then here. It feels like they give you that sense of reassurance that everything's going to be okay because they've already thought through all the things and made a plan for that. So that's what I love about Virgos. Libras, nobody does partnership like a Libra. Libras know how to create harmony in any situation, can put their own needs and desires to the side if it means that there will be peace in this world. They're the opposite of an Aries in that way. But if you want to talk partnerships and connection, that's Libra for sure. Scorpios. Scorpios are some of my favorite people on this earth because Scorpios can go deep. Scorpios are deep. They are intense. They are kind of opposite from a Gemini. So Gemini is kind of a social butterfly. A Scorpio would rather have a long, deep conversation with one or two people at a party. And they love that depth and getting into understanding the truth of all things, if you will. And they love transformation and really kind of rebirth and growing into something else. To me, I could spend hours talking with a Scorpio because they have so much depth behind them and they're not afraid of it either. I also have to say with the Scorpio, one of their greatest gifts on this earth is being able to hold the hard truth. So it's not uncommon. I've seen this happen so many times. Someone who has significant Scorpio placements, so sun, moon, rising, they are the people that everybody talks to. So one lady, she had, I don't remember if it's a Scorpio sun or a Scorpio moon, but she worked at a grocery store and she's like, yeah, I was just a cashier at a grocery store. And every customer I had would tell me their life story. And I'm like, yes, that is the Scorpio. That's what they do. They just kind of attract that energy, if you will. Sagittarius, ton of fun. Sagittarius is also a lot of fun. Sagittariuses are known for their optimism and really kind of leading with the idea that it's all going to work out. We're all just here to do things, but in the end, everything's going to be okay. And just that kind of that joie de vivre, if you will, that is definitely a Sagittarius. If you want to travel, Sagittarius loves to travel and they're great travelers because they love to explore and learn about different cultures, etc. Capricorn, so this is your rising, Steph. So Capricorn, again, it's another earth sign, so very grounded. These are the people of the zodiac that know how to get things done. They have the long game in mind. They have the staying power in their mind in terms of, I don't need to win today, but I am going to win at the end of the day, whatever that end of day is. So when you think about, I think we mentioned this on one of the first episodes, Taylor Swift and Dolly Parton both have strong Capricorn in their charts. And Dolly Parton's been around forever and she has just kind of stayed the course. And she, again, it's like just that knowing of how do I create success for the long term. Aquarius, they are the inventors of the zodiac. They are the ones that are thinking about things and starting revolutions well before anyone even thought that something might exist in that way. A famous person that you may know of, Oprah, is an Aquarius. And if you think about the Cultural Revolution, If you think about kind of
Sorry.
the revolution
You,
that she started, like
Oh
with
my
daytime
God.
TV.
you said you may know of.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I don't know. Do young people know of Oprah? Steph, do you know of Oprah?
I definitely do, but I wonder if the generation under me knows because she was still on TV when I was growing up,
Okay.
but I think I was definitely towards the end of it. So
Yeah.
I wonder if, people younger than me really know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good
fair
Very
question.
point.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you kind of think of her life work and like kind of the cultural revolution that she led from a daytime TV talk show perspective, but even a lot of like what she put out there. So the topics that were explored for the first time on national television, like they were kind of groundbreaking in terms of all the different areas that she explored as part of her career. So that's Aquarius. Pisces. So we just went through Pisces season. And the thing I love about Pisces season is, we talk about harmony with Libras, but Pisces is harmony and very much a kind of a go with the flow. So Libra kind of approaches harmony in terms of how do we move forward in partnership. But Pisces is like, hey, we're going to go any way you want to go. Like we don't have to move forward. We can stay here. We can go back. Very flexible, like water is very malleable in terms of where it's going to go. So very easygoing. They tend to be very easygoing, very connected to compassion. They're some of the most compassionate people of the zodiac. I love them for that. So that's what I love about each of them.
Pisces is our connection, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Abby being a Pisces rising and then you're a Pisces moon. Yeah. So
Cool. That was fun.
yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So
Any other thoughts? Parting thoughts?
no, we covered a lot of ground tonight. We
I
covered a lot.
We
I'm
did.
kind of amazed that we were able to cover so much.
Yeah.
Well, if you
Yeah.
want to schedule a meeting with Marci, starlightastrology.net,
Mm-hmm.
you can self-schedule on there. There is a scheduling tool, which I love, and definitely recommend the monthlies, but also the solar return is always fun.
We'll link it in the summary, the show notes summary, whatever we call it. And also, I did the career reading with you
Mm.
and loved that one too. So really anything, find what you feel like you need
Yeah.
and just go for it.
Yeah, no, but it's true. Like find whatever's speaking to you in that moment and pick that. And again, I have kind of categories and different labels for things to kind of help somebody choose, but I'm very flexible. I really want to ensure that whoever's coming is getting the value that they're looking for, the answers that they might be looking for, or that guidance. So
Do you have, I assume you do, but do you have a contact page on your website if people do have questions?
mhm. Yeah, if you go
Okay.
down to the bottom right, there's a contact me or questions, and it'll pop up with an email, and you can certainly submit that. Yeah.
Cool. And of course, follow Marcy on Instagram and the TikTok, as you call it.
My kids would hate if they heard me say that. They hate it when we say that, but
That's okay.
kind of stuck.
Isn't that your job these days?
What, TikTok or irritating my children?
Irritating your children.
Yes, yes, as much as humanly possible. It's a two-way street, trust me.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. And we'll see you here next week.
Sounds
Ta-ta
great.
for now.
Ciao tutti.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.